Hello, BookTube. There is a phenomenon sweeping TikTok that, far different from other phenomenons sweeping TikTok, is actually inspirationally uplifting. It's actually one of the most optimism-inducing trends that I have seen in the entire year. It's a group of women, usually young women, getting on camera and enthusing about being Kindle girlies, about entering their Kindle girly era. And at the heart of this fad, at the heart of these TikTok videos, is Amazon's Kindle, its e-reading device. The videos are wonderful. They extol the virtues of the Kindle. They talk about all the accessorizing that you can do with your Kindle, and they all hit the same note. Every single person, every single young woman who makes these videos hits the same note, which is that they may or may not have read for pleasure before they got their Kindle, but now they read a lot for pleasure. Hence the optimism-inducing part. And since I am myself an enthusiastic Kindle girly, I thought I would make a video along those lines, not on TikTok, but on YouTube, to show my solidarity with all of my Kindle girly sisters. First, I thought we would talk about what we're talking about here, because Amazon makes many different kinds of e-readers. E-reading here being different from an iPad, where it's a backlit screen, it's an LED light emitting thing, it's got the full range of color, and it can be wearing on the eye. Especially if you work with LED screens all day long in your job or at school, but even otherwise. A perfect example of this that I like to show, a little home experiment that you can do yourself, is to read on an iPad in moderate light. So not in the dark, that's obviously unhealthy, but in moderate light. Right now, for instance, in this room, it's daylight, but it's overcast. A storm is coming in. Read on an iPad in moderate light for half an hour. Not a long stretch for readers. And then put the iPad down and close your eyes. You'll see right away the brightness of the afterimage on your retinas. It's obviously not healthy. And e-readers don't do that. E-readers have e-ink. So the screen might be lit. It might have built-in lights when the light and the ambient light is low. But under normal conditions, it is not emitting light. You're just reading the screen. And anecdotally, but I think verifiably, that is far more restful for your eyes. Feels far more natural. After all, the pages of a print book are not emitting light. It feels more natural. And in all of these TikTok videos, these young women, my Kindle girly sisters, are talking about how it has changed reading for them. Let's not concern ourselves overmuch with what they're reading. There isn't much overlap between a lot of the books that they mention and a lot of the books that I would read, but it hardly matters, right? Once you get a toehold to reading, anything can happen. You don't know how your tastes will change. My tastes are completely different than they were 30 years ago. They're completely different. But the one thing that stays is the reading part. That stays. And that is a completely different TikTok fad than extra skinny clothing or bell-bottom jeans or the heroin chic of 40 years ago. That's completely different. It's completely healthier. And in their Kindle girly era videos, these TikTokers will talk about the various options that you have, even if you restrict yourself to Amazon e-reading devices. The one that stands out from the line, the one that is different from all the others, is the Kindle Scribe. This thing, which as you can see is huge. It's the size of a page of a book. It has strengths and weaknesses, as all of these items do. But this is the only one that doesn't seem like the others because it's so much bigger. The reason that it's bigger is because this is also a writing tablet. You can draw and write on this in a way that you can't really do with the other Kindles. This supports a haptic pencil, and it has a million controls in it for all kinds of shades and gradations of writing and also drawing. I don't use my Kindle Scribe for drawing. It took me a long time to get over the guilt of that, but I just not conducive. I don't like to do it. I don't like the experience of drawing on this thing. Maybe I will someday. I have the pen in case I want to, but the reading experience here has a couple of benefits. One, as you can see, is that there's a broader bezel on one side, so you have a natural place to hold the thing. And the power button is also on the side instead of on the bottom, so that you are never going to touch it accidentally. You're never going to turn this off accidentally. And thanks to the larger bezel on one side, and this is a gyroscope, so I think I've disabled the gyroscope, but you can read it in either hand. Thanks to the bezel on one side, you're going to do a lot less accidental touching of this thing. As we're going to see, the flat flush screens of the smaller Kindles make it possible for you to turn pages accidentally just when you're picking a thing up, or when you're handling it while you're reading it. This doesn't have that. So those are strengths. The Kindle Scribe also has incredible resolution, incredible pickup. You give it a command, it's going to follow that command right away. The beta-tested internet browser on here is a little bit better than the other Kindle e-readers. Amazon very consciously does not put a lot of work into making the web browser on any of its e-ink devices very good. It very famously doesn't do that, and wisely. As my Kindle Girlie sisters point out, one of the great things about a Kindle e-reader is the concentration. You are not distracted. Even if your eyes don't mind the backlighting of an iPad or a tablet of some kind, you still have all the distractions that such a tablet provides. It's made to distract you. It's made to play videos. It's made to play movies. If you're not being careful, you will allow it to show you notifications. With a Kindle e-reader, that is not present. You are only there to read. And that might seem like a limitation until, as many of these young women have pointed out, you try it. And all of a sudden, it's a blessing. So those are strengths of this thing. It's a very good, very sharp, very advanced device. The main drawback of this thing, there are two, I would say. One is that if you, like me, you only want to use it for reading, you have this nagging sense in your mind of all the stuff that it can do that you're not using it for, which feels a little bit like a waste. And that doesn't give you much mental traction, but it does give you a little. And the other is the size of this thing. You would think that since this is the size of a normal book page, that would be a strength. But you get used to the incredibly handy smaller size of the smaller Kindles. And this is the only example that we're going to deal with of that size. So we move to the smaller Kindles. The first one we can look at is now a bygone era. Kindle no longer supports it. They no longer sell it. It's no longer on their Kindle family introductory page. But it is a wonderful device. Of course, I'm talking about the Kindle Oasis, which is this device. This weird ergonomic shape where the battery forms an uneven ridge on one side that is perfect for gripping. It's also got the aluminum backing here as opposed to plastic. And the flip side of the grip is that you have a broader bezel on one side. So again, very few accidental page turns here. And you have page turn buttons. The manual page turn buttons, which Kindle had on their Kindle Voyage, but none of the other Kindles do at this size. They don't have buttons. And it depends on what kind of a reader you are, what kind of experience that you want here. The key thing to point out about these various different kinds of Kindles is that there's no right or wrong. It'll just be a preference as to which device you want, which device you like the most, even which device you feel like on any given day, if you have more than one of them. Nevertheless, with a lot of readers, they really like the page turn button. They really like the tactile gratification of doing something to turn the page, other than just swiping the screen, which is the same gesture that you use to do everything else. With this, there's only one thing that these buttons will do. You can still swipe the page here on this device, but if you're using the buttons to turn the pages, that's the only thing they will do. And that feels distinctive. There's something about that feels intuitive and natural. The downside of the Kindle Oasis, other than the fact that Kindle is clearly getting away from, they didn't upgrade this, they're not making it anymore, is that it's very sharp and very responsive, and that tends to cut down on the battery life. As we're going to see, the battery life on Kindles is phenomenal, as it is meant to be. The Kindle operation team at the beginning, when they were dreaming up electronic readers of any kind, thought of some of the absolute givens of reading. If we're intending this device to rival or even replace a paperback book, which is a perfect piece of technology, if we're intending this to rival or replace that, we have to draw up a discrete list of the things that thing does, and our thing has to at least approximate those things. It can have strengths of its own, as we're going to see. The Kindle has enormous strengths of its own, but it at least has to duplicate those. And of course, with your mass market paperback, you don't ever have to worry about the power. You have to worry about a whole bunch of other things, but you don't have to worry about ever charging it. So the team at Amazon knew we have to make the battery life on these things really, really good. Otherwise, it's going to jump out at any reader. They have to last forever. Now, it's an e-ink screen. Print, text, book files are extremely low maintenance. They're extremely low impact. So that wouldn't be hard to do. You put half the real estate underneath here as a battery. You'll be fine for a nice long battery life. But they knew they had to do that. And unfortunately, with the Kindle Oasis, that can sometimes not turn out to be true. I've noticed that there is a great deal of variation between individual devices. My Kindle Oasis is 5 years old, maybe more than that. It's as old as Kindle. This is a second generation Kindle Oasis, and I got it when it was new. So, and in all that time, it doesn't charge to 100%. It only gets to 93%, but the battery life is fine, just fine. I'm a very heavy reader on these things, and I can go a week on this thing before I want to charge it. Some people report just the opposite. They report, no, it worked just fine for a year, and now it doesn't have a battery life at all. I have to read when it's plugged in. You shouldn't hobble your experience with that kind of a limitation. I will be getting to that later on in the video. That is the Kindle Oasis. A really good device, and one of my favorites because of this vaguely Star Trek metal appearance. But then we get to there's a Kindle Basic, the very basic Kindle, the entry-level Kindle. For a long time with Kindle Oasis, with Amazon Kindle, this was a very bare-bones device. You got very little in the way of storage. Of course, you don't need much storage with ebooks, but you got very little in the way of storage. Maybe the responsivity was lower. The specs generally were lower, but it was reflected in a much lower price tag. Recently, Amazon upgraded their entry-level basic Kindle. And it is a much better device, incredibly sharp, lots more storage. This is what it looks like. If you're going to be able to make this out in my lighting, this came in two colors, black and also denim blue, which is one of the first times that Kindle ever offered a device in a different color than black or white. And the sales pitch with these new revamped basic entry-level Kindles was that a proportion of the materials that they're made out of were recycled. More with the black model than with the blue model, but I confess I was just Kindle girly enough to want the blue model. This has the standard defects of most normal Kindles, the main one being that the power button is directly at the bottom of the device, right where you rest it on your hand. So if you don't have this in a case, you run a substantial risk every time you use it of getting lost in your book and accidentally shutting off the device because you've pressed it too hard on your finger. It's a very light device, so there's a chance that that won't happen even if it is resting on your finger, but plenty of people have reported that that is an endemic risk of this design. Another drawback that people have talked about with the Kindle Basic, especially these newer ones, is that it has a recessed screen. You have a tiny little lip around the screen here. And some reviewers and readers and tech people have pointed out that that's less attractive looking than a flush screen, that it can gather lint or dirt. I don't know what environments these people live in. I'm not the neatest freak in the world, and I've never had lint or dirt in any raised screen like this. The raised bezels, okay, they may add this mythical dirt, but they are mighty convenient. It's very unlikely that you will accidentally touch the screen on this thing because you have something to grab onto that is not the screen itself, something differentiated from the screen. And of course, these Kindle Basics, they are very inexpensive. You can find one in black or blue in this revamped version on secondhand markets for very little money. And they last forever on a battery charge. Just forever. The battery and the power button are the only two controls anywhere on the side of this thing. That's it. So you plug this in, you bring it all the way to 100%, you're not going to charge it again for a long time, no matter how heavily you read on it. It's a very small, very basic device. And then if you move up from there, you move up to Amazon's best-selling Kindle. Their most popular Kindle, the one that people tend to go with. Most people tend not to go with the basics, even though these revamped basics are really good machines. They are really good e-readers. Most people, Amazon sales figures say that most people go with the device that is called the Kindle Paperwhite. Now, for a long time, that was this. And this is exactly what you get here. You see no raised bezels, just one flat surface, molded plastic on the back, a fingerprint magnet there, the power button and the charging port on the bottom there. Nothing else anywhere along the device. Just, as I've said many times, the platonic ideal of an e-reader. It's the size of a greeting card. It's very durable. This does not have a case. I like my technology without any fuss on it, as we're going to be getting to. That makes me a substandard Kindle girly, but I think my sisters will accept me anyway. I hope they will. I don't like to put cases or any kind of folderol on my Kindles. And even so, even without a case, this is a lot more durable than you might think. That is not a glass surface. You can throw this in and out of a bag without ever scratching it, without even scuffing it. It's a good, solid, sturdy device. It usually has more storage than the Kindle Basic, and usually it's got a faster responsivity. This is the older Kindle Paperwhite. And then there's the newer Kindle Paperwhite, which is the best-selling Kindle of them all, which is bigger. We're going to be able to make that out, put them corner to corner. See, it's bigger. It's wider and taller, a little bit wider and a little bit taller. That is actually very conducive to reading. You would think that a difference that small would not make a difference, but it actually does. The more screen real estate you have to read on, provided you don't bump it up to the size of a Kindle Scribe, the better it is, the more comfortable it is to read. This is closer to the normal size of a paperback page than this is. The responsivity is much improved here. The storage options are much better. The screen is sharper. This is a better Kindle Paperwhite. It also has the power button at the bottom and also the charging port, but the charging port is USB-C. So, if, like most of the world, all of your tech is USB-C, your tablet and your MacBook, or your laptop of any kind, well, now you don't need a separate cord, right? Now, theoretically, you could have one power cord that charges your phone, your tablet, your laptop, and your e-reader. This has a massive amount of room on it. Ebooks don't take up a lot of room. It's just a terrific device, a wonderful, wonderful upgrade, and I couldn't help but notice the device of choice for my sisters in the Kindle girly community. What they tend to do with the new Kindle Paperwhite is get the device, load it with books, and again, I want to stress here, it doesn't matter what books. The point here is not the device. These young women are not carrying around this device just for the fun of it. They're carrying it around to read. And they are reading on it. And by their own admission, they're reading more than they ever did. That is wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. But you can load a lot of books on here. And then what they typically do is get a clear plastic case that goes around the perimeter of the device and on the back. So it doesn't do anything for the front of the device. It doesn't have a front screen. It's a clear plastic case with bumpers on the corners. And what they do once they've done the clear plastic case is then to decorate the clear plastic case with stickers and a pop socket. Stickers, there are all kinds of varieties. You can get a million different kinds of varieties. And it is very tempting to do. I may deck out this thing with that. The reason they usually do that is because they don't really want to put stickers on the back of the device. And I don't blame them at all for that. And there's no harm in me trying to be a genuine Kindle girly by doing that, since I'm not putting anything on the device itself. I may end up doing that. Probably not a pop socket. I'm not really interested in those. I have enormous hands. And I have found with the larger size Kindle Paperwhite that there is much less tendency to accidentally turn off the device. The bottom is now wide enough so that when you cup it in your hand to read, the cupping action does not extend as far as the power button. For me, I have had that has happened far, far less often with this device than with any other Kindle, except the Kindle Scribe and the Kindle Oasis, where the power button is somewhere else. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but it's so much easier for me. But I tend to hold it that way. The pop socket is, I'm sure you know what they are. You probably have one for your phone. You adhere something to the back here, and It's a little plug that extends into a handle so that you can hold on to it like that, and also position it places so that you don't have to hold it at all. Another popular accessory for Kindle Girly era is an electronic page turner, so that you don't even have to thumb the pages. You could just set this in a device somewhere, or in a frame, or your nightstand, and you have a clicker, an electronic clicker, usually in bright pink, that turns the pages for you from a distance. I don't think I'll be investing in one of those either. This, if you're as old as I am, this already seems like science fiction brought to life. I don't think I need a clicker to make it even easier. And also, I don't need the kind of felt carrying cases that are also popular in Kindle Girly TikTok videos, because I'm not worried about moving around with my Kindle. I'm not worried about throwing this in a bag. I've done that many, many times with the previous Kindle Paperwhite without a scratch on it. They're really tough devices, really good, tough devices. So whatever format that you take of these things, they are still a broad, open invitation to enter your Kindle Girly era, no matter when, no matter why, because this is a better mousetrap. Someone, the Kindle design people or whatever, whoever it was, looked at a mass market paperback and said, I grew up with these, I love these are books to me, I have fallen in love with reading because of these things. But as elements of technology, they have certain lacks. They are limited in some ways. What if we made a device that didn't have those limitations? You'll have to swap in some new limitations. Like I mentioned, a mass market paperback does not require you to charge it, but you can't read it in the dark either. You can with this, the Kindle Paperwhite, the Kindle Basic, the Kindle Scribe, they all have built-in lights that flow onto the screen as opposed to into your eyes. They're very good. They're very comfortable to read by. That's a trade-off. But it's not a 50-50 trade-off, because these things have more superiorities than deficiencies when compared with actual print and paper books. For instance, this thing has 6,178 books on it. Do you have any idea how much space I would need for 6,178 print and paper books? A lot. I know that because I have almost that many. A lot. I would require a lot. And as many stories from the TikTok videos that I've been watching have been showing, that very much applies when you're traveling for work, when you're traveling to school, when you're going on vacation. You don't want to bring 10 books with you. You will. In the bad old days you had to. I did. But you won't want to. Especially if they end up being duds. Especially if you get to a beach at Cozumel or to a hotel in Mexico and you don't feel like reading the books you brought. Well, this is all they do. This is all the choice in the world. Not only will it fit thousands of books, any mood, any feeling, any inclination of any kind, but also you can buy books on this thing easily. Without finding the nearest bookstore, without converting your money, you can just buy them on this thing. They'll be on the device in 10 seconds. That is a superiority, an absolute superiority when it comes to print and paper books. These are lighter than almost any paperback. This new generation of Kindle Paperwhite, it's at least as light as a normal paperback. And keep in mind, a normal mass market paperback that we're talking about here is $10. It's $10 for that book. And whether you like it or not, the next book will also be $10, and then $10 more than that, and that's just if you're doing mass market paperbacks. If you're doing larger, the trade paperback size that is now standard, you're talking $20 per book, whether you like it or not. And you have to find a place to put them when you're done with them, or a place to get rid of them if you don't like them. And they're not convenient, because guaranteed, you lay back on the bed, you get yourself nice and snuggled on your pillows, your cats or your dogs pile up on top of you and go to sleep for what they're intending to be 10 hours. I guarantee you, 5 minutes after that whole circus show is done, you will want a book that's 2 rooms away. You've all experienced it. I have. You will either have to do without that book, or you will have to go through the elaborate process of getting up and going to where it is. Not with this. Not if it's on here. It's easy as could be. Also, if those people on your bed, whether they're cats or dogs or Humans, I guess, if you're slumming it, they might want you to turn the light off, the reading light that you've been living by your whole life. They're not going to worry about this. Not only does the Kindle Paperwhite have a built-in light, but it has warm light features that you can program on this thing to be either timed, so that every night at 7 it shifts to warm light, or that you can manipulate on the screen yourself, just as easy as could be. And that is, warm light is where it goes from this rather antiseptic gray shades to a warmer, more amber tone that is even more calming on the eyes. And that is easy to do. That is simple, a one-finger gesture to do. To the point where that low, golden, very soft, warm light on this device will not bother anyone sleeping with you. If you want to get in one more chapter or 2 more chapters. Same thing with all the other commands that are on this thing that aren't in a print and paper book. A print and paper book will not emit light for you. It doesn't come with its own light source. Also, a print and paper book is set the way it is. It's set in print, in ink, on paper, and there's no changing that. Which means you can't, for instance, change the font size. You can change the font size on this to anything you want. You can change the font style if you want. If you hook this up to the internet, you can import your own styles and make the words actually look different in type font. But you can change the size of the type font on this thing. And although my Kindle Girlie sisters are a long way off from this part of their life, I have talked to so many people at the other end of their life, so many people who have a lot more dirt on the tires, who love that feature. Absolutely love it. Where how many people have I talked to in the last 15 years who said, as I'm getting older, my eyes are getting weaker, I go to the library and there are fewer and fewer books that I can read. I will pull down a book by an author I loved when I was in my 30s. I'll open the paperback or the trade paperback, and the words will be like tiny little ants. I won't be able to read them at all. I could, maybe, but I'd be straining like crazy to do it. How many books are printed that way? All of a sudden, some grandson or some well-meaning nephew gives them a Kindle, shows them how to manipulate the font size, and the whole world opens up. Once upon a time, not all that long ago, if you were visually impaired, you needed huge magnifying plates. One at a time, page by page, in a laborious and very expensive process. Here, not at all. You can make the font size anything you want. Same thing when we're talking about something cut in stone. That mass market paperback of yours is not going to help you. It doesn't know you're there. It's not an interactive experience at all. That might feel heretical for me to say, because how many of us have been incredibly moved, changed by reading a mass market paperback, an old mass market paperback on the back porch on a bright summer day. How many of us have been changed by that experience? That gives the impression, which is an illusion, that that experience is interactive. It's not. That book doesn't know you're there. It doesn't care about you. It's not changing depending on what you want it to do. It's not going to change its font size. It's not going to start emitting light when the sun is going down in Iowa. It's not going to do any of that. Same thing is true with terms or individual words. If you're reading along in a print and paper book and you come across a phrase in French and you don't know French, you're out of luck. You might be able to intuit it from context, but if you want to know what it actually says, you're going to have to put that book down, remember your place, put a bookmark in it, dog-ear the page, maybe put the thing face down or whatever method that you take to remember where you are. Then you have to get up, go and find another print and paper book to teach you what that phrase means. Then when you've learned it, you go back to your book, you fumble with it, you go back to the same page, and then you know what that phrase means. I describe that as if it's the labors of Hercules, but of course it was absolute second nature to all of us who read print and paper books. I read print and paper books for 60 years, and that was just absolutely normal. It came with the territory. That's what you had to do. You don't have to do that on this. This is a better mousetrap. You can just long press on any phrase or any word and get a definition. Or a Wikipedia entry, for Pete's sake, if it's less a vocabulary item and more a cultural reference. If you're reading a book and you come across a word in German, you can long press on that word and you will get a definition. If you're reading a book and you come across a mention of a Lucullan feast, and you have no idea what that means, who is this Lucullan person, you can long press on it and get a Wikipedia entry about what that means. Right there in the process of reading, you don't have to go anywhere, and the minute you're done, that helpful window disappears. and you have accessed it. You now know what it means. You didn't have to interrupt the flow of the reading at all. Same thing is true when it comes to those mass market paperbacks with annotating. I don't know how many of my Kindle Girlie sisters annotate their books, but I annotate the heck out of my books, and I have forever. And when you're dealing with a paper book, there's only so much space you can use. Some of them, especially academic presses, will sometimes be generous about the blank pages at the end of the book. They know perfectly well that you want to annotate, but they also know what every reader knows, which is that you want to annotate on the page where your thought occurs. You don't want to put it at the end of the book. And on the page where your thought occurs, well, there's a border of blank space. It's not very big. How many times have you or I wanted to make an annotation on a book and had to turn it like this and make the most out of the space on the side? Well, that's not true with this. You can annotate anywhere here to any extent that you want. And it's not just on this book, unlike the annotations that you make in a print and paper book. If you make a long annotation on this and you want to export it, you can. It's just one button away. As long as you're connected to Wi-Fi, you can export your notes and have use of them off this device, away from this book. That is extremely helpful. That is just extremely helpful. It is, as traders as it might feel, it is simply a superiority of this device over the normal print and paper book. It is simply a superiority. Same thing with highlighting. Highlighting in a print and paper book can be a nightmare, especially when the urge to highlight a passage occurs when you have nothing to highlight with, as it always will. Here, you don't need anything. You can just highlight on this device. And I mentioned one of the strengths here is that if you're out and about, you're on the subway, you're on the train, you're at class, you're on vacation, you're at work, you should be working, whatever it is, and you want a book, you don't need to go anywhere. You can just get one on this device. You can order it and have it delivered to this device in 2 seconds. But there are a lot of other opportunities than that. Amazon, of course, would prefer you to just pay up. But there are a lot of other opportunities. For instance, there's library apps in the United States. There's Libby, or Overdrive, where you can connect your device to your library's ebook holdings and borrow your ebooks directly from the library onto your device. Just you're browsing at the library site, and you just check out the book, send it to my Kindle, and there it will be. And there are also Amazon itself started as a book company, of course, and offers a couple of different ways to get deals on books. One is Prime Reading, and this is if you're an Amazon Prime member. So you would pay to be an Amazon Prime member. In my experience, just as an ordinary reader and shopper, Amazon Prime is a no-brainer. It easily pays for itself with the benefits that they get. Amazon has a name, a reputation as an evil company, but they do give you your money's worth. I have found almost all the time they do. For instance, although they are widely considered to be evil, I've never actually understood that, but although they're widely considered to be evil, I have never had anything but not just good, but superlative customer service experience with Amazon. When I get in touch with a customer service representative with them, I am blown away by how eager they are to help and how much genuine help they can be, how generous they can be. Needless to say, as I'm sure almost everyone listening to me knows who lives in the United States, their delivery service is incredible. Just incredible. Fast, easy, very, very user-friendly. And so I am an Amazon Prime member, and I have been for a long time. I get benefits out of it almost every day. And they have a program called Prime Reading. It gives you access to, the number always changes. I think it's around 3,000 or 4,000 books that you can get. You can borrow, you can read them on Prime Reading for free. You can have, I think, up to 10 books at a time. And then once you max out at the number of books that you have to give one back in order to get a new one. My ad hoc impression, I have not researched this, and I don't know that the research is doable. My ad hoc impression is that a lot of the books that you can get through Prime Reading are newer than the ones that you can get through the other program that Amazon offers, which is Kindle Unlimited. And Kindle Unlimited is 4 or 5 million titles that you can get, including an incredibly huge and inviting sea of indie authors. If you want to find out what's going on in the indie publishing world, as you should, because it's an incredibly vibrant space full of great stuff, if you want to find out what's going on there, well, you're never going to find that out at your bookstore, because indie authors aren't in your bookstore. But Kindle Unlimited is a great way to do that, no matter what kind of reading you like to do. And Kindle Unlimited costs money. It's $12 a month, and you can get Kindle Unlimited without Amazon Prime. You can get Kindle Unlimited just as a separate thing from Kindle. You can just put it on your phone. But it's $12 a month, and it's millions of titles of books that are available on Kindle Unlimited at any time. Changes all the time. It also grows all the time. And you can have 20 books out at a time. And what I mean by out here is that Amazon, in addition to creating a better mousetrap, has created a better library. Again, it feels just as heretical for me to say these things as it does for a lot of you to hear these things. I was a huge fan of my library and a huge fan of my bookstore and print and paper books, and I still am. But Amazon's system for Kindle Unlimited is not you borrow a book and you have X amount of time to read it and then you have to return it, or it's overdue. I have never liked that arrangement in my brick and mortar library, the Boston Public Library. And I don't have to deal with it with Kindle Unlimited. With Kindle Unlimited, since of course we're dealing with text files here instead of printed books, you can take out up to 20 books. You can have them as long as you want. But once you've maxed out at 20, you have to return one in order to borrow one. If you don't get close to 20, well, you just keep going. I know 2 or 3 people who usually have Kindle Unlimited, they swear by it, and they usually will max out at 10 books. They never get close to 20. They work their way through them, and that's that. But if you go all the way to 20, you can go all the way to 20, and there's no time limit on those books. No one's watching a clock and ready to penalize you if you take too long. You can take as long as you want. You just can't pig out. You can't have 21 books. You can have 20 under the assumption that the one of those 20 books that you've had for 6 months, you probably aren't interested in reading anymore, so return it. And if you borrow something from Kindle Unlimited and you love it, well, you're one button away, you're one gesture away from owning a copy of it that will be delivered to your Kindle. So it's not in Kindle Unlimited anymore, it's on your device. I have done that so many times, mostly for indie authors. Almost exclusively for indie authors who flood Kindle Unlimited. There are tons and tons of deals. Lots and lots of Kindle Unlimited titles are free on any given day. The author will do some sort of promotion. You can get free books every day from Kindle Unlimited. And so many of those indie authors that I've discovered that way have become favorite authors of mine. I now buy their books. I don't get them in Kindle Unlimited anymore. I buy their new releases. Same thing also would be true from other websites. Project Gutenberg, for instance, has lots and lots and lots of books that are in the common domain, including every canonical classic that you would ever want to read that you maybe didn't get around to for school. Everything is out there. Maybe not in the best or the newest translations, but they're all out there. And in the English language, oh my God, everything in the English language and more. Tens of thousands of titles that are not canonical. They are not taught in schools. They're still on Project Gutenberg. 19th century fishing manuals. If you feel like it, go ahead and look for it. Project Gutenberg will deliver the thing, the text of the thing, straight to your Kindle for easy reading. So you get all of those benefits on these devices. But the number one benefit that you get on these things, the number one thing that puts a smile on my face when I am indulging in Kindle Girlie era videos on TikTok and on BookTube, is that it makes you a reader. It hooks you into reading. It adds an element of reading that is wonderful. It is real, and it is wonderful. It is not just tech dopamine. It's something different than that. The young ladies who are making these Kindle Girlie videos, if you watch some of the videos that I'm thinking of, you'll know right away that they are no strangers to the dopamine epidemic of smartphones, of Instagram. They're no strangers to that. Young people these days have to deal with that. They have to navigate that temptation. But they're not getting that with this. Here, sure, there's a fad element involved in decorating your Kindle and putting little charms on it and whatnot. But the heart of the thing is reading. And reading doesn't need any help. You give it a foot in the door, it will take over. It will fill you with happiness and a satisfaction that no mere fad is going to wipe away. 2 years from now, if TikTok is still around, there will be other fads, and Kindle Girly era will be gone. But these young ladies and me, we will still be readers. That's what the glory of this thing is, that no matter what you think about e-reading technology, this is a whole library. And when you pick it up, the world goes away. This doesn't offer you any other distractions. You pick it up and you read. Even a print and paper book offers you distractions. If only the distractions of inconvenience. Again, it feels disloyal to say I love them, but they are mighty inconvenient. Compared to this, they are mighty inconvenient. That's what gives me such a smile about the Kindle Girly era TikTok craze, is that it's making readers. Now, the craze elements will be gone. The stickers will be nostalgic. These same young women will someday be middle-aged women. They'll have daughters of their own. The daughters will find these ancient devices with the stickers all over them. And maybe they'll laugh a little at how dorky that is, but their mothers will make them readers. Because that's what this is all about. And I love that aspect of it. Absolutely love it. So I wanted to join in. I wanted to throw my hat in the ring for a Kindle Girly summer. I admit, this is a little bland. I should have a backing and stickers on this. Maybe next week. But anyway, that's a little breakdown of your Kindle. Are you a Kindle Girly? Are you entering your Kindle Girly era? We welcome you, my sisters and I. So happy reading. Thank you, BookTube.